Hey, government, can you help me? I'm struggling to survive and pay basic cost of living as, of course, the purchasing power of my dollar is being obliterated by you printing it out of thin air. The government's like, yeah, don't worry, I got you.
All I need is a beat that's super bumping, and for you.
It's a diverse woman of color who likes clam chowder dancing. I'm like, is that the best you could do? The government's like, yep, that's exactly what we could do, and we're going to make it that much worse under a Camala Harris presidency, as of course now she's literally promising full-on communistic, centralistic economic policies that are going to be devastating for the American people, as of course the polls are shifting, and the establishment has their favorite horse in the race that got there through some very undemocratic means. But don't worry, they'll still carry water for this horse, if you know what I mean there. As of course, we're getting now finally a glimpse of the policies that she's going to be running on, what she's promising to do. And very interestingly, it is very similar to, the kind of larger UN 2030 vision. An agenda for sustainability and development and diversity and equity, and it all really just leads to central control of every aspect of your life. Really just communism in other fancy, smancy, woke, corporatist PR marketing terms, as this is probably going to be the new political leadership of this country, and the future of this country is absolutely uncertain, to say the least, especially with just the glimmer of the future that we face here. As of course, very interestingly, ever since Camala Harris got her throne as the establishment queen, she didn't really run on anything, but yet she still had a huge amount of support. People were galvanizing and supporting her, and of course backing her, giving her hundreds of millions of dollars for essentially a blank check here. A person that, of course, didn't even have to come out with campaign promises. Didn't even have to come out and saying, as president, I would do this. As, of course, more interestingly, she also is a person currently that holds a vast amount of political power. She is a part of the current administration, as now a lot of people are saying, well, if you're promising to do these things, you could really do them now, but I don't know why. I don't know why you need me to vote for you. As of course, you're in position of power. You're in a position to actually get this done. Instead of just promising to get it done, like most politicians who do it every 4 years, who always sing the praises, who always tell you all these wonderful fairy tales and stories that people believe. As this time, I think it's worth paying attention to see what she's talking about, since it does signal some larger, bigger financial calamities and problems ahead that this country is facing that there's no going back from, especially her promises to eliminate billions of dollars of debt that, of course, will only be met with more printing of the US dollar. Now, very interestingly, in the making of this video, there is kind of a rebuttal, a little bit of some kind of clarity to understand what actually happened here just a few weeks ago in the United States, as a lot of people were calling this a coup d'etat, as the New York Times released a very interesting opinion piece titled, "The Dems are delighted, but a coup is still a coup," as they describe how powerful establishment figures within our own government and private enterprises pushed President Biden out against his own will. He didn't want to leave. He said he wouldn't leave. He's saying his health is fine, but yet he was still ultimately replaced by a very strange letter that was published on Twitter with a strange signature that some people allege wasn't even his. Something peculiar, as of course these usual big announcements aren't done when someone is dealing with a very alleged, quote, severe sickness. And when they are done, they're usually done through, of course, grand statements, through, of course, larger public displays. As, of course, people want to see a peaceful transfer of power here. And I think it's fair to say that what happened to Joe Biden absolutely was underhanded. And having the New York Times kind of even admit that is a major marker, is a major milestone. As it's pretty clear here that the democratic means and ways aren't really practiced or respected here other than, of course, the larger kind of thirst and acquiescence of power that seems to be prioritized more than anything else here. And when you have a bunch of ruthless elites that are willing to do anything and everything in order to, of course, maintain their grip of power on the American people, it really makes you wonder, what else are they willing to, of course, do here? How far are they willing to go in order to, of course, put their agenda on everyone without their kind of acquiescence, without their kind of participation in it? Now, a lot of people are hating on this New York Times opinion author, but she said the quiet part out loud here of what a lot of Americans are thinking, especially with the way that our government is run. As of course, it's not us deciding, it's not us choosing, it's not us making the policies, it's someone else. It's a central, larger, bigger force out there that is the larger decider maker that is not the American people. Now, even though we might have one dissenting piece in the New York Times, it's fair to say that the corporate media absolutely loves Camala Harris and will be doing anything and everything under the sun to make sure that she is reined in as the next supreme chancellor and leader of this country, as of course they will also implement a lot of underhanded kind of tricks that are being called out in real time on social media platforms that are probably now being targeted and probably will be attacked under the future Camala Harris regime. As of course, this administration, this candidate knows how to virtue signal, knows how to, of course, say all the right things. She's getting the best media training. The best psychological PR teams are at work right now trying to devise a plan in order to make you love her cackle, her communistic-like policies, and initiatives that are absolutely freaking absurd. And they have tried it many different ways beforehand where it kind of failed, as previously highlighted by her very interesting interaction with Chris Cuomo.
Thank you, guys. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
She, her, and her. Mine too.
All right.
That clip, of course, from 2020, and probably why Chris Cuomo was canned. As of course, Camala Harris, in my opinion, is the perfect byproduct of the establishment corporate woke machine, and she will say and do anything to appease Moloch and the larger interdimensional beings out there that, of course, are pulling her strings, according to my own personal opinion and perspective. And it's fair to say that the establishment, by and large, has a larger agenda, a larger kind of playbook that they've been kind of reading, that they've been following, that they've been carrying out in many different countries around the world in different ways, in different steps, but it all goes into the same kind of ending. It always ends in the same kind of place, and that is government having complete and utter control of every aspect of your life. It also means a big, bold, bureaucratic state that, of course, tries to solve and fix every problem that in doing so only makes that problem that much bigger, that much worse on the person who, of course, is faced to deal with it. As, of course, you look at her policy positions, and these are BlackRock, State Street, approved Goldman Sachs woke ESG score talking points that literally have been tried to be hammered into the American people for a very long time. As she, of course, she's advocating for a pathway of citizenship for migrants. She supported the BLM protest. In 2017, she said everyone needs to be woke. She supports the grand expansion of, quote, reproductive health. She toted around policies about abolishing private health insurance. As more importantly, she is also now promising to eliminate billions of dollars in medical debt and student loans for millions of Americans. Policies during this particular very hard, destructive economic time for the average American would absolutely cripple them, in my opinion, and other economic experts in this field. As of course, the Biden administration has already erased $170 billion in student debt just for 5 million Americans, institutionalizing, subsidizing woke corporatists that are parading themselves as universities, essentially filling the coffers of many top educational systems in this country that are doing the opposite of educating the youth. This, as Camala Harris is now promising to expand that particular program with a proposal to eliminate all student debt, specifically when it comes to medical debt, using federal funds, printing more money that, of course, magically just comes out of thin air. Money is just poof, made out of nowhere, according to many communists and Democrats who don't follow basic economic principles, that would, of course, make the price of everything else go up because money doesn't grow on trees. It has to have some kind of intrinsic value that, of course, is depleted the more that you just print it out of thin air. As, of course, there's even talks from Camala Harris about instituting price controls, something that, of course, we have seen in Venezuela that has absolutely backfired and doesn't work on basic economic principles. Elon Musk recently retweeted someone saying accurate conclusion to a Robert Sterling that previously described these larger economic policies as something that, of course, people were overreacting with, saying that it would cause communism, mass starvation, and the end of America. And then he laid out his points, doing a step-by-step summary of the policy that he concluded will actually lead to communism, mass starvation, and the end of America. And in my opinion, he is absolutely not wrong when it comes to this matter, as it's fair to say that Camala doesn't have the best economic literacy, as previously she literally described how she would take businesses' private property because she could do that.
I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do.
Yeah, she probably does, as of course that video is from 2019. And let's be honest here, with the policies that she's pushing forward right now, or they're telling her to push forward with, that's probably what she's going to be doing. Elon Musk also retweeted a very interesting video from Milton Friedman that kind of simplified a lot of the larger economic quandaries that people are facing. That simplifies everything we're trying to describe here in this quick video.
Keep your eye on one thing and one thing only, how much government is spending. Because that's the true tax. Every budget is balanced. There is no such thing as an unbalanced federal budget. You're paying for it. If you're not paying for it through it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation or in the form of borrowing. The thing you should keep your eye on is what government spends. And the real problem is to hold down government spending as a fraction of our income. And if you do that, you can stop worrying about the debt.
And currently examining America's debt, which is $35.1 trillion. I think it's fair to say that there definitely hasn't been a balanced budget, and there probably won't be under whatever future administration comes our way, as of course there's a massive problem with government spending. Now, of course, one presidency is promising less spending than the other, but let's be honest here. Both of them don't have the best track record, especially when it comes to, of course, balancing the books, which in my opinion signals a larger existential threat against the U.S. petrodollar, against American hegemony, and the future of any kind of American prosperity, which of course is going to be transformed into the UN's 2030 agenda, which slowly and surely is being implemented a lot quicker through, of course, the Democratic political party. As of course, they have 17 goals here, and they all sound like wonderful goals, but these goals, when practiced, when envisioned, are absolutely idiotic goals that, of course, cannot be met unless the government is controlling every aspect of your existence and life. And if you look at Western governments, they are slowly following the same kind of trajectory, all in the way of promising really nice things. There's going to be no poverty. There's going to be price controls. Grocery stores are going to be, of course, told what they could sell and cannot sell at what particular price the government decides to price them at. And, of course, that's not how the world works. That's not how the economy works. That's not how math works. And, of course, these people, I would say, don't realize it in a kind of simplistic form, but I think they do. And I think they know what they're after, and they're after complete subjugation, complete slavery. And that's what we're going to be having, all under the guise of having zero hunger, no poverty, equality. As, of course, you look at all of these goals and you look at the way that they could be implemented, the way that they could be implemented is, of course, helping out a lot of parties that have hijacked and taken control of the government for their own personal benefit. Don't worry, there'll be no hurt feelings under this kind of government, as in the United Kingdom. They're now trying to impose very stringent, tough laws on misogyny that politicians in the United Kingdom are trying to equate to terrorism. Yes, you heard that correctly. In the United Kingdom, they're vowing to crack down on the promotion of, quote, hateful beliefs. So it's no longer that you, of course, are able to, of course, hurt people in some kind of way or hurt their feelings or emotions. You now believing something that the government deems not okay or something that they just don't like at any particular moment, depending on how the wind shifts, means that you committed an act of terrorism because of what you believe in that the state doesn't approve with. That right there is the trajectory of the limitations that we are soon going to be facing, especially with the larger technocratic, democratic establishment political takeover of this country that will also lead to, of course, communism, mass starvation, and the end of America. That is the plan, the destruction, the implosion of the Western world from an inside job that, of course, is being carried out right in front of your eyes. And it's not just a coup d'etat against Joe Biden, it's a coup d'etat against the people of this country and this country itself. That's my opinion. That's my perspective. What do you think?
I think it's ironic that the place that invented our language has now forgotten the meaning of the words and the language they invented, because terrorism is not misogyny. Terrorism, once upon a time, as defined by the Oxford English Dictionary, had a B, C definition. And in part C, it said government by coercion. And the first two parts were about the French Revolution, and this is where terrorism comes into common parlance, and then again it popularized in 1946 by the proto-Israeli state, because that's a state born of terrorism. But let's go to the Oxford English Dictionary real quick, and let's just check in and see, because, you know, definitions are fluid and they change over time. Territory, terrorism, here it is over here. Now let me get this on screen for you so you can also, there we go. The unofficial or unauthorized use of violence and intimidation in the attempt to achieve political aims. So it's still kind of like government by coercion. To threaten or frighten someone over a period of time is to terrorize. That's a little bit different than terrorism. And to call misogyny in the UK or any other type of, you forgot to use the alphabet soup of, you know, they, them, those type things, that is not terrorism. Terrorism is something very different. I want you to look at just simply the fact. When someone uses English words to express an idea, do other people die? Because the terrorism I'm talking about killed 76 people in the King David Hotel. Some of them were Jewish as well. They bombed their own people in order to meet their achieve their aims. That was historically terrorism, the bombing of the King David Hotel. That is not what they're talking about in England these days. They have learned different meanings for the words that don't reflect reality. That's the only thing I could guess. What do you think, Scott? What do you think about the use of the word terrorism in that context, classifying people's words, describing others?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, they have the term stochastic terrorism, which is the idea that words are the incite. Now, that is
somewhere downstream. It's going to hurt somebody, Scott.
Exactly. So that's where they have a lot of the leverage, is because, you know, it's the same thing where they can just lump anything and just broaden out what the definition of stochastic terrorism is to include pretty much anything. If I say, I don't like that guy's shoes, they could say, well,
somebody could beat him up because you just singled him out for not having good shoes.
Exactly. So that would be the pinch point where they really, you know, leverage people, is like they just misinterpret or interpret people's words in any way they want. I wrote an article about this when I was working with T-Lab back in the day. It was there was some
shout out to the last American Vagabond.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan and T-Lab. But, like, you know, he was covering that pretty extensively for a minute, because there was some story. I'll have to go look it up. But yeah, that was my first exposure to that term. I mean, obviously we know that they like to misinterpret what we say and use it against us, but the idea that would then be used to justify some sort of pre-crime measures or you know, become an accomplice or something after the fact or anything like that, it's pretty scary.
So anytime they add on a word to a scary word, so terrorism, scary word in history, right? It means beheadings, it means bombings, it means hijackings, it means kidnappings. So they're going to attach a word to it. Stochastic simply means hasn't yet fucking happened. Okay. Means you're doing pre-crime. It means there's a percentage chance someday, maybe if this happens, something might happen. Okay. Wait till then. because stochastic means it's not actually terrorism. It's just a way to get budgets filled and books sold for those people and meetings and all that other stuff that they do in the bureaucracy to separate you from your rights using the words, right? So if we know the definitions of the words better than they do and they go outside the lines, we can hold them to account in reality, but not if we don't know the difference. If people don't know what terrorism actually is as defined by the example, OED, a lot of different definitions over the years, but this single source shows there's a meaning for this word. There's a context for this word. They're taking it out of the meaning and context, which means if it was in the meaning and context, they wouldn't have to make it up. They wouldn't have to associate it with a separate word that means not yet happened. So I just think that's part of what they're doing. It's war.
It definitely is. And so, I mean, well, so I just looked up the article here, and this was around just questioning the COVID narrative. So they were just trying to pin it on anybody questioning the COVID narrative. I think this is specifically in New Zealand.
Yes.
They were like,
well, they did it in France too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. How, like, if you question the narrative, you're now a terrorist. So,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an old trick, and, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull it out for any number of reasons coming up here.
Right as I was preparing for the show tonight, I was over here on the platform called Civil, CIVL.com. There's a live debate going on between Dave Smith and Mark Pellegrino. Got that wrong. Ceasefire or eradication, the moral answer. Now, what's interesting about that debate over on Civil is I think they're both like libertarian understanding. They're talking in a specific part of the argument, right? Within like non-aggression and ethics and morals and stuff like that. The problem is the guy, whoever this Pellegrino guy is, he's only heard the official story. And Dave's first response is like, dude, your whole thing is cartoonish. And as a Jew, I'm familiar with the whole story already from the official side. He's like, I don't know what you're going to do from here, if that's your angle. So anyway, it's still going on. And my content's over on Civil. I don't know if it's up yet, but this is run by a buddy of mine named Justin. And if you guys have the cycles in your week, I'd watch the replay. And if we have time later, when we get to the Israel section, I would like to show you a couple of the claims being made and how easily debunked they are by the evidence and history on the matter for those who are literate and know how to focus their mind on finding substantial and meaningful answers. So anyway, that's yet to come, but that's an interesting little skirmish going on over there. Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week. We provide you with contextual history. We give you the source notes, the references. We do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man.